So how's it going, Geoff?
It is, it's light at the end of the tunnel. It really feels like the end of the pandemic is close. Um, my mood is shifting. Um, I'm good. How are you, Geoff?
I'm pretty good, I think. Um, yeah, it's weird. I do kind of feel like the end of the pandemic is coming, but I also don't really believe it. I'm kind of in denial
Mm.
about that. And
Hmm.
also, I'm not sure if the world is ready for the pandemic to be over. I mean, I
Mm.
feel like have we learned our lessons yet? And I,
Oh.
I'm a little bit afraid that we're just gonna kind of go back to the shitty way that we used to be, and possibly just have to repeat it all over again soon, or
Mm.
go back to the petty way that we used to live our lives, which was not really that different. We're just anyway. That's a pretty negative way to start off this show.
Interesting.
That's the
Hmm.
way, that's the way I felt about the pandemic, but that's a bigger picture look at things. Right now, day to day, I'm doing pretty well. I'm
Okay.
pretty happy. Yes,
Now, are you doing what you love?
I actually am. It's really weird.
Hmm.
It's weird. I am doing what I love. I mean, yeah, yeah, I'm doing what I love, and I'm getting praise for it, which is
Oh.
cool.
What's a nice piece of praise you got recently?
Well, for me, it's praise when anybody says you're really good at this. Will you do more of it? That's enough praise for
Hmm.
me. I mean, I'm not winning awards or anything, but if somebody contacts me out of the blue and says, "Hey, we think you're the best at doing this kind of thing, this kind of music and sound design type thing, can you do it? And can we pay you to do it? And can you do it exactly how you want to do it?" I mean, what's better than that when it comes to
Wow.
doing work, right? Um,
Wow. No, nothing.
and that happens maybe. I'm really lucky that happens maybe once every 3 years in my life,
Huh.
and the rest of it is just you know, either either me trying to convince the world that I'm valuable, or trying to convince the world I can do something valuable. Are those the same thing? No,
Hmm.
those are different things. Yeah, but
Hmm. I've heard the advice before, don't be in the convincing business. You just have to keep looking to find the people who already like what you do.
yeah, I mean, I the way I see it is that it's going to be a convincing business no matter what. Like you either have to get there's as an artist, there's two ways to survive, and that is one is to make shit that people want, or to make people want your shit, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's still convincing, unfortunately. We all have to market at some point.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wonder if there's a difference between being and marketing. Right? There's that phrase like "you're so money."
Yeah, let's dissect that phrase.
Well, I mean, and by being what you are, you do the thing you're meant to do. And that in itself is an act of marketing that does not really need to be, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's about distribution then, but I don't know. I mean, like, and we've said this about our conversations before. Like, if we are interested in what we're doing, other people will be too. So it's almost not like I need to go sell a thing. It's just I need to go be what I am in plain view, and sort of like a bat signal, people will find it.
I hope so. I mean, that's kind of the way I always thought things would go for me. And usually they do, they just don't happen exactly when and how I want or expect them to.
Yeah.
It's like you got to put yourself out there. That's essentially what it is. But you got to put yourself out there more. It's like you have to put more effort in than the return. It's like
Yeah.
an example of this is like once every 3 years, like I'm talking about right now, when I get praise for what I do, and I get hired for what I love to do, and that just naturally happens. Those moments, I feel like I couldn't tell you why or how they happen. They seem so random, or they seem like not really not. It's not because I put myself out there all year, or it's because I hustled, or because I made a lot of contacts, or no. It's usually something very random. It's just out of the blue, and then the rest of the in between those moments, I work my ass off to get my stuff out there, to make myself to 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 share what I'm doing, to make all the connections, do all the stuff that you got to do that people tell you have to do. And I can't tell if one thing leads to another or not, because they seem totally unrelated. Part of
Hmm.
me just makes me want to go, Geoff, don't do any more work unless it's really what you love to do, because the serendipity is what you live for anyway.
Hmm.
So maybe I should just be a fucking deadbeat, and a deadbeat when it comes to being proactive about a career or anything like that. Maybe I should just create stuff and do as much as I can, share as much as I can, and just do that. Maybe that'll lead to good things. It'll just be really hard and painful most of the time.
Well, I mean, it may be just as simple as getting used to doing your work in public, right? I mean, like you make marketing sound so agonizing, whereas like all it takes is just like tr- I don't know. I mean,
You're probably right.
treating
Yeah.
social media just like the way that you speak,
You're
right?
probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. The reason I think it's the reason I think it's agonizing is because I'm not, when I'm creating, I'm in the zone and I'm not thinking about anything else. And when I have to think about something like social media or anything like that, it comes from a different place. And so
Hmm.
I have to, it's just another thing that I have to get in the zone when I'm doing. And I can do that. And sometimes it works out, but it's still, I don't know. It's hard for me to take it that seriously, like I can take my art.
Well,
So
I mean, what's wrong with having a door open to well, so social media there's like sort of two parts. There's the creating part and then there's the reading part, which involves reading other people's stuff and also our notifications and messages, as it were. So it's almost like a gauge of how good our thing is. And that's not always reliable when you don't have a large audience, right? I mean, you and I both, I mean, even if I'm tweeting or writing or posting or editing the best stuff I've ever done, it's like it might get 0 likes, and that doesn't mean that it isn't good, right? But like you can't rely on other people to tell you if your stuff is good or not. But I think I say all that to say, like, it's maybe important to be able to like be in the zone and also know that it's landing in public, and also not let the fact that it's becoming content, can't let that get you out of the zone. It's like you sort of have to be able
yeah,
to be in the zone knowing you're doing stuff in public, right? Like right here. Like we know this is going to be going into our body of work, and we have to be able to get in the zone.
yeah. I think that you're right. I think that oftentimes when I'm working on a project and it's something that I'm being commissioned to do, I can't really do it out in public, because in the end, I'm not going to own it. I'm going to give it to somebody else to own. But this brief period of when I'm creating it, it's mine and I can own it, but I can't really do it in public. So it's a
I
weird
don't know
thing.
about that.
I mean, maybe there are ways that I can do it in public, but I can't really share the project that I'm working on, for instance. Um, but I have another thing that was one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you and record this conversation, and that is I've had I've had a week I've had a week off from certain distractions, certain work I haven't had to do for a week. And I thought,
Hmm.
okay, well, this is a great opportunity to work on something else that I've been looking forward to working on. And as soon as Monday rolled around and I had the time, it was like I just didn't care to work on it at all. And I was feeling so inspired. You know, it's the thing where when I don't have any time to actually work on something, I'm really inspired to work on it. And as soon as I get the time, I just don't want to do it anymore. What is
Huh.
that? Why does that happen to me?
Hmm.
Um, you know, it's kind of like when like I'm lacking sleep and I can't seem to get any sleep because I'm working so hard. And then finally the moment comes when I can get a restful night's sleep and I don't want to sleep. I want to stay up all night. Like what's wrong with me? That happens.
We love difficulty. We love complaining.
Maybe that's it.
We love thinking that something else will solve our problem. I don't know. We love being unsatisfied.
Well, I'm working on this music project right now, or I've committed to working on this music project, and so the last few days I've set aside time to create, and I can do whatever the hell I want, and I can literally do anything I want for this project. Somebody is looking to me for some inspiration too, so it's like really blank slate, and I guess it's been about a year since I've worked on a project like this, and for some reason I'm having a hard time getting inspired, and that's a really uncommon thing for me. I usually don't have that issue, and so it's kind of like having writer's block or something, which is something I never really believed existed. I don't know. Do you ever
No,
get writer's block? What is that to
no,
you? No.
no. Writer's block. No.
Yeah. What the hell
I
is
think,
that?
I think that's a myth. I mean, if you really can make no mistake, um, I mean, start doing anything, and then eventually, in the doing the wrong thing, you'll figure out what the right thing is. You know, like you really can't make a mistake, right? I mean, and again, I mean, as a writer, I mean that's probably one of the disciplines where you pile up a bunch of bad stuff and end up with so much bad stuff. I don't know. I mean, I always trust in making too much crap, knowing that once you've made a lot of stuff and you get used to making stuff and you're like really warmed up and you're not afraid of the record anymore and you're not afraid of making a mistake, that's when you can really say the thing you really should have said the first time.
Yeah. So it's about like expectations, right? If I sit down to work on something, I have an expectation that I'm going to make something great, and that's kind of a terrible way to start a project.
Yeah. I mean, it might be about getting to joy. It may even be about getting to genius and like totally letting go. And I mean, being your true child, divine self and just creating straight from the heart and straight from the soul without the ego or fear or worry in the way and just purely from the core.
So I probably just need to walk around with a microphone live, like just recording everything that I'm doing, because I make music throughout the day. Um, why is it so hard for me to actually make something deliberate? Um,
Yeah, like the time you sit down to create should not be much different from the other days. I mean, from the other hours, right? It's like when you're like when I'm like writing all day, it's like, well, 4 o'clock comes around and it's like, well, I'm still going.
yeah.
I'm still doing it. I mean, it's like how I breathe on
Well,
days when I'm doing it all day,
I,
which sort of hasn't been in a while.
I mean, I rationally know that and I understand it, and it's one of the reasons that I'm grateful to like do what I do as a sound designer, because there's no difference between me when I'm working and when I'm playing. However, I still get the problem every once in a while. Like it's very rare, but like when I do, it's like shit. Like what would I rather be doing right now? And sometimes I feel like I just need to get something out of my system. Like I just need to like maybe I needed to take a week off from doing anything creative in order to do something. I don't know. Maybe.
Hmm.
You just went on a trip, right?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
And
Well,
were you writing on your trip?
in more ways than one. Some, some bit. I mean, I feel like lately have been not doing too much writing, either by hand or on computer or on phone, but mostly just like being with my thoughts, and then also like speaking to people. But also just yeah, like being with my thoughts, and that's its own form of social media. I think it's the social media of my own self, and yeah, I mean, I think like noticing my own thoughts. I mean, that's a reading experience. I think. I mean, really, with me, that's like the book is always going.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm always reading because I'm always listening because there's always chatter and conversation in my head that I'm listening to. And it's not unlike reading a book or watching a movie. It's like God, I just like listen to the movie in my head all day, all the time, and I've been doing it for years.
I think I've asked you this before, but do you need so you don't need certain conditions? Do you have a work space that you prepare?
Oh yeah,
You
oh yeah.
do.
I mean, I mean, where I yeah, and I mean, I feel like a broken record, but I wake up, I stretch, I go, then yeah, to usually do like a page and a half of writing pen and paper, and then yeah, do a little computer free writing, and then I go make breakfast and I eat it, and then I get back to my computer and kind of I alternate between standing and sitting. And then yeah, later in the day when I do my singing, yeah, I mean I've sort of got a place where I always do it.
Hmm.
Yeah, kind of having that set, and yeah, having my day set. I very much go. There's a French author, Gustave Flaubert. He says, "Be regular and orderly in your life, so you may be violent and original in your work."
Interesting. Because I have to change my atmosphere often because if I get too if a place feels too repetitive to me, it's not
Hmm.
it doesn't really inspire me. I like when I first moved into the place where I am now, I built the studio. And then as soon as I built the studio, then I kind of created another little music area in the house where I could write music because the studio is kind of for crafting music. It's not the best place to write. I don't know. I don't
Hmm.
know why that's different in this place, but and then now I sometimes I need to actually just leave the building. I have to go somewhere
Hmm.
else to get the idea. And it often has nothing to do with being in a certain place. Sometimes it's what I'm listening to or um, and I think I mentioned this to you in one of our first conversations, but I'm way more productive and creative when I'm happy than when I'm
Hmm.
tortured. And sometimes I feel like, okay, maybe that's the issue. Maybe I'm just not, you know, happy at my core right now, which is weird because I feel
Hmm.
pretty good. But usually when I'm happy, the dopamine, the only kind of dopamine that can get me to the next level is creative dopamine. When I'm working on something
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is great. I love it." I can't get enough of that.
Right.
And I don't care who likes it or hates it or anything like that. I'm just like
Hmm.
in heaven.
Yep.
And it's all about how to get back to that and chase that high to the end of the earth.
Yeah. Uh huh. Yeah. I mean, that is the best feeling. I mean, I think nothing beats when you're in your creative flow at the edge of your range and you're doing stuff that's even surprising you. I think when you're surprising yourself and when you're impressed with yourself and when you're intrigued by what you're doing and you almost don't recognize yourself, that's, I don't think there's anything better than that.
Well, I like being around myself in those times. Like
Yeah.
I I I I can be alone and happy and yeah, and be working. It's especially when I'm making music, because then like half the time it's just spent dancing around the room.
Mm.
It's like, uh, yeah,
Well, I mean, it also depends. I mean, I often I think write good stuff when I am sort of heartbroken and emotionally yanked out of whack, because that puts you in touch with some pretty potent truths. But my work, I think, always accommodates that, right? Like I don't really write in any one kind of form. Like I can kind of say whatever I feel like saying at any moment, and the form I work in can stretch to accommodate it. I sort of get to make the rules with my thing, and I can make it any size I want, and I can save it for as long as I want. And that may not be the case with music, and especially when you have a certain deliverable on a certain date, as opposed to I'm sort of growing these vines for generations, and it's like, well, like I'm working on the 2021 vintage this year, and I might pull from it 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And it's like, I don't really have anything due. I really don't do deadlines. I sort of
yeah.
put stuff out when it feels like A, I'm craving attention, B, I feel like giving birth to something.
Well, what about collaborations? I mean, this is a collaboration, so there's a bit of a
Mm,
deadline to it, I guess. But when you're
yeah.
working with somebody else and you've got to meet on certain terms, I don't know if how often you
Mm.
do that. How often do you collaborate with other writers?
Yeah, not that often. But when I do, in that case, I like deadlines because I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm very much used to being able to make stuff all the time. It's like I can keep writing lines all the time, and I also know that nothing needs to be perfect. It just needs to have stuff in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really don't get writer's block at all. I mean, I'm not afraid of the page, right? I mean, no matter how slow it goes, you just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's the editing and the trimming part that I don't really do too much of. Like I really feel like I have not spent much time in my own existing work, really much at all in the last few years. I almost kind of have given up on it just because it's not that interesting to me. The next thing is more interesting to me. The next thought I'm having, and maybe I'm past the point of no return, where it's like I never want to go back and so many writers I hear on podcasts, it's like they spend so much time shaping and editing stuff. And I mean, I just haven't really. Though today I did go back to what was actually the first time I ever tried starting my book. This was in 2012. I literally went back to the document where I said, "Here's where I'm starting my book. Here, here's the document where this is going to be the place where I house it to start it." And yeah, I mean, it's even been several years since I cared about that project. So it's kind of fun to go back now. I very much feel like I'm beyond it and sort of detached from it. And there's so many young people out there creating content at the edge of their comfort zone where it's like, well, I don't think I have any shot to be successful because no one cares. Like everyone is out there ripping their entrails out on social media around the clock. And it's like, well, I kind of can't compete.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I'm worth listening to. Right? My story is actually kind of boring. Like I'm really not that impressed with my own like the interestingness of my own story. I don't think it's that interesting. Yeah, I'm sort of having a crisis of what I'm really interested in about myself and what I think I can actually do. I'm in about as much of a crisis as I've been in, right? I'm used to just being able to surrender to the froth of intuitive productivity, and my whole self esteem was built on um, being very disciplined and very committed and very focused and very productive. But yeah, I've sort of the last few days, really even like week, but like maybe even like 2 weeks, have just like kind of like pulled the plug out a bit and just
Hmm.
like let me see how not doing this feels. I just want to like see what happens. Um, so yeah, I've unsettled myself in a very profound way, and I don't know. It's certainly making me see myself clearly and what I think I have to say. Um, I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, it's a little hard for me to relate because we're actually very different artists in a lot of ways. Yeah, and like for instance, you use social media as a platform, as a, well, I guess as a genre, as a, I don't know what you'd call it.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I use it as a canvas and a place to explore what I am. I mean, I feel like I'm always losing my voice and I'm always needing to reconquer my own flow. I certainly don't use it for marketing purposes.
I mean, for me, social media will never be able to be that because it's too far removed from the music making process. I mean, it's and until there is a until there is an app that I can use, until there is a musical instrument that immediately shares whatever I just played, you know,
Well,
which
I mean,
maybe there
there's
will
a
be.
voice. I mean, there's a voice. You know,
It's true. Yeah.
those audio messages things really aren't that bad, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you can share clips of the little things that you're working on. Like you can just like you can export it, right? And
That's
like
true.
there's
Yeah,
no
that's true.
reason that even while you're doing client work, there's no reason you can't, like, you know, for one reader who wants to keep up with, you know, your 2 hour work session or whatever. It's like you can condense it down to, you know, 10 or 15 little like discrete steps or things where you surprise yourself, right? I mean, you can
Yeah,
even take notes on your own surprise, right? It's a place to narrate your own intrigue to yourself. And I mean, that's really how you create your reader, right? Like you need to create the
that's true.
taste by which you can be appreciated.
I just
Essentially,
don't think about it. I just don't think about it. It's weird. Like I probably should. Right now, I'm working on a sound design project that involves recordings of shofars, the Middle Eastern ram's horn brass instrument. I
oh,
guess you.
cool.
And it's like, of course, who wouldn't want to hear that? Who wouldn't want to hear sound design made with shofars? But I don't think when I'm doing it, I should put this on social media. I
Well,
don't know.
there's a lot of wacky listeners out there, and I think people are always interested in the thing that they couldn't predict.
Yeah, that's true. I think most of the people who follow me on social media would be like, "What the hell is this?" Um, yeah, because
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
I know there's nothing wrong. In fact,
That's a
I
good
prefer
thing to
that. I
give.
prefer
Yeah.
that. Yes. But yeah, I've always been a little bit confused by social media because I didn't know what it was for because I didn't understand my graph, so to speak. Um,
Hmm.
I didn't know what I was using it for. Was I using it to keep in touch with family? Was I using it to make connections to people? Was I using it to get information or, whatever?
Well, the reading
Still don't really know.
experience and the creating experience, I think, are like discrete, even if they happen in the same place.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, Twitter is a weird place for me because the reasons the what I do to create on there is very different from what I get out of it when I read it. And
right.
Instagram is another one of those where, like, I don't know, it's mentally exhausting for me to post on Instagram,
Hmm.
and I don't know why. I have no idea why. Maybe it's, you know what it reminds me of. It reminds me of, I guess it. This is drilling pretty deep for me, but it kind of reminds me um, of having performance anxiety as a musician. It's like, here are the people who are closest to me, that follow me, who know me or don't know me, and I'm going to create something that is basically saying, pay attention to this. And in the past, like throughout my entire life, the times where I've done that, I've been pretty good at it. And like, but I haven't done it in a casual way. It's always been a performance.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where when I started to use Twitter more, and I know, and I have friends who have hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter. It's like, fuck, I don't want to have hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter. I don't want that responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
because like, then
Well,
everything I do is a performance.
I mean, everything you do is a performance as it is. It's just about how many other people can you have. Let's see. By that I mean, like, I'm always performing for myself, and it's like, well, how many other people am I willing to give that away to, and like let them come be the same me who knows me very well. Let me see if I can explain that again, because that wasn't well explained, which is what you get when you don't write every morning like I used to. I'm out here trying to say things for the first time, even at 11 something p.m. I don't know. I mean, I think you're sharing your self awareness. I think that's the power of what social media is, right? And like, if you use Twitter as a diary to document what you find interesting about what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
right? Essentially, like it's a way to externalize your inner voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, you're right. And it's also, yeah, but in order to pause and and post to social media, in order to do that, here's the thing is, in the flow of what I do to create, I do have to stop, and I have to do something different. I have to post to Instagram, or I have to post to the Twitter. Like, I actually can't do that in the flow. I'm not good at. Some people are great at that. They're like, they're doing something interesting happens in front of them, and they can capture it and they can share it with the rest of the world. In fact, that's the first thing they think to do. And I don't. And maybe it's because I'm old. I don't know. Like, that's not the first
Hmm.
instinct that I have. Usually the moment passes, and it's in conversations like this that's like, actually, yeah, if I shared what I was doing 2 hours ago, people probably would have been really interested in it, because it was really fucking interesting. But in the moment, I'm not thinking about sharing with other people. Maybe I'm selfish with the things that I find interesting.
Hmm. I'm. Hmm. I mean, it's as easy as writing the thought down and speaking in the voice and pushing send and
It's true.
keeping going.
Yeah.
It's just a way of. I mean, it's a lightweight way of. I mean, like, it's not even talking to people, because like you're not there when they listen, but you can trust that they'll hear it in your voice when they read it in their own time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're just like giving people a way to experience what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're letting them have it.
I wonder how I could do that more. Like, I wonder how I could, like, because if I remember to do it, then I can do it. But I just need the
It's not
reminder.
about remembering. I mean, it's about you freaking open a tab and you type TW, and then it auto completes, and you hit enter, and put your cursor in the text box and you type it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'm not going to open Twitter. Like I'm not gonna like that's
Do you
not.
not have a browser window open on your computer?
No, usually I don't. Not when I'm creating. No, I don't because that's going to lead to a bunch of distractions that are going to take me away from what I'm doing. So it's not.
Well,
And
do you not want to be creating?
what do you? No, of course I want to be creating.
Well, then
But
how would you get distracted?
so if I'm creating something, let's say I'm blending, different shofar sounds or
Okay.
something like that, right? And
And what application are you using for that, by the way?
I'm using a bunch of different applications, but let's say I'm recording them into like Pro Tools or Logic. Let's say I'm using Logic Pro. I'm not going to want to leave that app and then go into a browser and open up Twitter. That would be the last thing I would want to do because then all of a sudden I'm in Twitter and then I'd have to pull myself out of Twitter and then back into the sound design I'm
Well, I
doing.
mean, you don't even
It's
need to read anything on the screen. It's all
yeah,
about for like you just have
but
something to say and you say it and you focus on the thing you say and that doesn't really break your stream of
no, but it
concentration.
does. It does, and I'll tell you why. It's because if I'm doing the sound if I'm creating a sound effect or I'm creating doing some sound design, making some art, right? Then all of a sudden I want to post that. I want to share it. Then I have to not think about the creation that I'm working on right now, but I have to think about how I'm going to share it with the rest of the world. It's not something that I just do. I wish it was, but all of a sudden now I'm thinking about how to share it with the rest of the like what's the best way to share this? Do I just share it as audio? Do I share it as words? Do I share it like what do I do? So now I'm thinking about creating a different thing. And that will take me out of it. And I don't think to even do it in the first place. So it's
I don't know
like,
why it
yeah.
takes you out of it. I mean, being able to talk about what you do seems, I don't know. I mean,
There's definitely ways I could do it. Like for instance, I do take breaks. I do take breaks from the creativity, like when I'm working. I take breaks all the time. And during those breaks, I could go, hey, let me bounce into Twitter for a second and just post what I'm working on.
well,
Like
yeah,
that
I
would be
mean,
the way to do it. Yeah.
well, I mean, getting used to writing about your work, I think, is a really good thing, right? And
Yeah.
there's, no, like, you can just do I mean, a tweet storm is a beautiful thing. I mean, you've seen me let loose all sorts of stuff. It doesn't matter. Like, usually I just do it to, like depressurize my own heat. And it's like, I just want to, like, get something out of my system. And you can just keep replying to the latest tweet in the thread
Uh-huh.
and you just write about what you did or
Yeah.
what your thoughts are. And I mean, even if you say taking a break from composing, was totally in the zone for like 45 minutes, it was great. I'm mixing up these things. Like, I
That's
mean,
what I would like to get into the habit of more is doing that because my
yeah.
my my mind doesn't default that.
Well, I
And
think getting used to writing about what you do is a pretty important thing for success. But
it is, yeah.
what would I know about that?
Well, I mean, it's something that when I am on Instagram and I see my sound designer and composer friends posting what they are working on, I know it can be done. So um, it shouldn't be that hard. Just for me, it's something that it just doesn't really occur to me, um, and that's why it's almost like, well, if I just had a little reminder, if I just had something like, hey, don't forget to tell your friends what you're doing, like that, wouldn't that be nice? If I just had a little thing that said, don't forget to tell your friends.
Well, don't you have like a built-in like an angst machine inside you?
That's true, but my angst machine doesn't make me doesn't sound an alarm that I need to contact other people. I guess that's what this is.
Hmm.
This is I do have several angst machines. I'm always updating them.
Updating your angst machine. It's a good
Yeah,
could be a good title for this one.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
does does loneliness have a role in your work or your life?
Not loneliness, but being alone does. Um, like what like part of loneliness as an emotion? No, it doesn't really make me more or less creative. I don't think. If anything, loneliness would probably make me less creative because my my goal would be to get not lonely. I
Hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
But being alone, um, I do, I am happiest and therefore creating the most when I am totally alone, or that I think that I'm totally alone. Um, and that's actually kind of tough for me because this last year we've been in this quarantine lockdown, which sounds like it would be great, but I'm married, so I live with somebody else. So I'm always like in this unit with another person, and or like I have the greatest partner ever when it comes to being creative. Somebody who doesn't care how much noise I make or what I'm doing, or and gives me tons of space and stuff like that. But I know in my head I'm still not alone. Like there's still somebody else there. And I'm thinking about that other
Hmm.
person. And that can make it hard to be creative because there's part of me that is thinking of that other person. And that's part, like, why did I get married in the first place? Was so that I could be thinking about another person, and so that person could be thinking about me all the time, right? So for me, being creative is a very selfish, totally selfish thing, and it's much easier to do when I'm alone or when I think I'm alone.
Hmm.
So, like late at night, sometimes I get the best work done because I forget that there's another person in this building, in this house,
Hmm.
and I'm just going. But yeah, if I'm worried about disturbing somebody, it's kind of hard. It's hard, kind of
Mm-hmm.
hard to do stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. You sing every day. Do you ever worry that you're disturbing people when you sing? Or does that just not come? Not you not think about that?
No, I certainly think about it. I mean, I think about who's within earshot, right? And I mean, I think I've moved from the the point of this is annoying and I need to like not annoy them. Sort of moved from there toward the like this is a gift and it's cool that I can like be sort of in their vicinity and like I know that they'll hear me. And so then I'm also sort of considering, well, who is that person? You know, how could I mix what I want to do with what I think they'd enjoy hearing,
Hmm.
coming through the wall. And it's like, well, what do I think that they'd recognize? You know, and
Hmm.
like sometimes when when I'm visiting people, I mean, it's always really cool to like go choose to sing a song I think they'll like, and then like later in the day I'll like hear them humming it or singing it, and it's like success.
Oh wow, that's so funny. So I have this
So,
story when I lived in an apartment in LA, and it was really cool because it was like a corner apartment, and it was like downstairs near like like my I built a studio downstairs and like near this storage. It actually was a storage room, and there was
mm-hmm.
nobody around at all, and it made tons of noise down there, and it was great. That was where I actually built a recording studio in the place. It was my landlord. He charged me $100 extra a month for like a room that I could turn into a music studio. It was incredible.
Nice.
But I made music there, and I was totally alone. I felt totally reclusive, and it was great. I loved it. And then one day, I saw my a neighbor, and she came out, and I was like, oh, I hope you can't hear the music. And she said, no, no, I love the music. I love listening to you make music.
Wow.
And I couldn't make music in their room from then on. I had to move because
Wow.
she was listening to me. I knew that she was listening to me because there was
Wow.
actually there was like a wall. We kind of shared a wall, like the wall ran through the building, so she was hearing the resonance through the wall. And I was just like, oh man, I thought that I had this perfectly reclusive place, and it was ruined by somebody who could actually hear me, in the
Mm.
building. And of course, then I assumed that everybody in the building could hear me, and there were like six other people that lived there. So um, it didn't really ruin it for me because at that time I thought I can't be a person who needs this extreme of a controlled environment in order to do great stuff. That can't be. I
Mm,
need to break that habit. I need to train myself to be able to do something different
yeah.
if I ever want to, like, live with another person. Or do I just want to be lonely for the rest of my life? So,
Well, and I mean, I think this gets into something we talked about a couple conversations ago of like the red light anxiety, and it's like when you know you're being listened to, when you know you're being recorded, it changes. I think it's good to get used to, right? Like the stuff we do, like when we practice, when it's just us, we can be very careful and diligent. But it's like when we start to get around other people and it sort of becomes a performance, you sort of got to like let loose and like let emotion take over and like lose yourself and let yourself
yeah.
have fun.
Yeah, I mean I learned that from not just what we're doing here, but hosting another podcast that like it was net like I noticed that people enjoyed listening to the podcast that I did. The times where it seemed like our listeners were enjoying it the most were the times that I completely forgot that we were recording,
Right.
and it just became totally transparent. And to get to that point, because that's when you realize that people are enjoying you. They're not
Hmm.
enjoying what you think you are. They're enjoying you.
Yeah.
It's like, and in a way, when my neighbor told me that she loved hearing me make music, like that should have been the ultimate compliment, because what I was making wasn't meant to be heard by anybody, you
Huh.
know. And she liked it, and I was like, wow. It was like she saw some part of me that was not meant to be performance, um, or something like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you let her be you, and by that I mean it's like you were performing for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but you let other people hear it as well. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really the gift to give is let them in, let them be you. And it's like you have to learn how to open source your own self esteem. I mean, and
Yeah.
like I think that's what is going to lead to whatever is 1,000 true fans, right? Where it's like you get your own small but mighty and loyal audience that will support you as you keep doing your thing, right? I mean, the ideal is to get enough support from people who want to support you to keep pleasing and interesting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then you let them in on that journey. I mean, that's actually really the goal. It's certainly not to do brand and client work. It's to keep making stuff for yourself, but then you let them know how that's going.
Yeah.
You let them be
Yeah.
you.
And that's probably the answer to the writer's block, or whatever you'd call it, that I'm feeling now, which is I'm trying to I'm trying to create something, and when I don't need to create anything, I just need to be me and be making music. That's what I need to be doing. And that's why, yeah. Yeah, you're right. My dad, he's he's almost retired, and he wants to basically spend the rest of his life building acoustic guitars in his wood shop.
Mm,
But he doesn't want to have clients. He doesn't want to he doesn't want people to pay him to build acoustic guitars. He wants to just build acoustic guitars, and he would love people to buy them and play them, of course, but he doesn't want to be hired to build them.
right.
you
Well,
know?
I mean, yeah, then you can sell your finished products
Yeah.
rather than taking commissions or taking orders.
So he just wants to do what he wants to do, and that's, I think, what
And
you
if
have.
and
You've
if people
yeah.
yeah, and like if people like it, great. But if they don't, it doesn't matter because you're making a next thing anyway that they'll then have a chance to see and like or not.
Yeah. And we've actually talked a lot about this, like how no art, like your art's going to be terrible unless it's just painfully painfully yours.
Yeah, I mean, like, unless I'm really going in to meet, essentially to go confront the conversation I don't want to have, unless I'm doing that, it's not gonna be anything, right? I mean,
It'll just be practice or something. It won't even be that. It'll just be
yeah. Well, it's gonna be worse than practice. It's gonna be being sick of what I'm doing. It's gonna be stagnation and
yeah.
being stuck, and I don't want to see it, and nobody else is gonna want to see it. So yeah, and and I guess we are different artists. I mean, I sort of like it's a combination of therapy and prayer what I do, and it's a continual like trying to get inside myself, and yeah, I mean, find the things I don't like, find where I'm bothered, find the conflicts. I mean, I guess I'm in the wisdom business, if I had to say it. There's an Egyptian poet who I've befriended, who he had this really good phrase. He says, "Wisdom is remembering everything you know," and I think it's a huge, powerful, beautiful phrase that I've thought about every day since I read it a few months ago. Essentially, it means like keep everything right up front. And here's where being able to trace a clear line from the beginning of your life to the end, and like really keeping that up front all the time, so you really have access to all your memories and insights and ideas and stages of your life and memories and people and experiences. Like keeping that right up front all the time, I think, is crucial. I mean, that is what makes you a good listener. And noticing things, and yeah, it just gives you a very vast tool set when trying to make metaphors and make meaning and have conversations that are lively and dynamic and far reaching, right? And it's like if you can show some facility with your own wisdom and your own experience, all of a sudden you invite and inspire others to do the same. And I'll quote the playwright Arthur Miller. He says, "It's very rare where people are asked the question that put them squarely in front of themselves." And I think that's what good art does, is it forces you to, yeah, confront the thing in you don't want to see, where you've been hiding from yourself and lying to yourself and letting yourself be abstract and off the hook. I like art and I like people and conversations that make you go where you don't want to go, because really that's where you need to go.
Well, I guess that's where I'll try to go.
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty good place to wrap up.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening. Yeah, that was fun. Feel free to let us know in the comments or in our direct messages where, what you thought, what you want to know, what it made you think. Yeah, we're all in this being human out loud near the end of the pandemic, hopefully together. And we get to decide what the future is. We get to decide how we want to live. So with that, until next time.